Okay, normal, if everything went okay, then you can see my screen. Yeah, okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the webinar about the development of the ICF core set for vision loss. Like Philippe said, we are with a lot of people today, normal 42 persons. So I will start with some practical arrangements. First of all, maybe it can be handy to put all microphones off. And if you have questions, please keep them till the end of the presentation. We will have time to answer all questions. So it's not needed to put them in the chat or interrupt me with questions. We will have time for it. So, okay. Okay. I would like to start with introduce myself and our research team. I'm Lorenzo, and I'm working by Licht en Liefde. This is a new member of ENVITER. We are an organization in Belgium, more specific Flanders. So we are a Dutch-speaking organization who support blind and visually impaired people. And we do that with a lot of services. We have home support, we have rehabilitation, we have guidance to employment, we have a school for adult education, we convert books in Braille and audio, and we have also a lot of sensibilization projects. And we have a big history. We are this year 100 years, so it's a party year for us. So we have a lot to do. And we developed the core set together with the University of Amsterdam, the Netherlands, with Professor Ruud van Espen and Dr. Hilde van der A, both from the Low Vision Research Group. And they are specialized in everything about quality of life for visually impaired people. And our other partner is the University of Ghent in Belgium, with Professor Dominique van der Velde and Dr. Stijn de Baert. And they are from the faculty occupational therapy, and they are specialized in everything about participation, but the broad field of participation. So they don't have a focus on a person with a visual impairment. There was a short introduction. So what's on our agenda today? First of all, I will give you a short introduction into the ECF. Probably for the most of you, this will be a common knowledge. For who not, I give a short introduction, about 15 minutes, and then we go to discuss what is a core set, how can you develop a core set, and how do we develop an ECF core set for persons with vision loss. So first of all, what is the ECF? Before we start, maybe a short history about the ECF, because it all started in 1893 with the International Classification of Disease. This is also known as an international list of causes of death, and the focus on the ECD was on mortality and morbidity. And it was a standard document used in epidemiology, health management, and clinical workfield. Later on, the International Classification of Disease is updated in the International Classification of Impairments, Disability, and Handicap. And this was a manual of classification of the consequences of a disease, injury, or handicap. And this was inspired by a strong medical thinking. The focus was on care and cure. And later on, we made the shift from a medical model to a more social model, where we come to the ECF, the International Classification of Functioning, Disability, and Health, in 2001. And within the social function, there was a strong focus on activities, participation, and environmental factors. But the ECF was insufficient to chart the functioning of children and young people. And in 2007, Specific categories were added to the ECF to describe the development of the young child, from the child and the youngers. So it was updated. And to speak about health, we need a biopsychosocial approach. From a biological perspective, humans are perceived as an organism, a body. We have cells, we have neurons, and together we form organs and organ systems. But we are also functioning in a social network. We have family, we go to school, we have work, but we are also a person. We have our own behavior, we have our personality, we have our emotion. And when we combine the three, then we can speak about health. Okay. First of all, you see the structure of the ECF on the screen. The ECF is a big classification. It exists out of more than 1,400 categories to describe the functioning of a person. We do not only look to the health condition of a person, but also to human functions like body functions and structures, but also activity participation. And we have also a strong focus on personal and environmental factors. And every element in this model has an influence on the other different component. So when there is, when we take an intervention on one place, for example, the environmental factors, this will have an effect on another component in the model, for example, activity or body functions. So every component is in relation with all other components. When we have a close look to all the components, we start on our left side. We have the component body functions and structure. And this we can divide in 8 chapters. And it's important to know each chapter has his own subchapters. So, for example, mental functions has subchapters, for example, psychomotor function, emotional function, memory, and so on. The same for the sensory function and pain. This has also subchapters. Mostly they are seeing functions, for example, visual acuity, visual field, but also the quality of vision, for example, color, contrast, light sensitivity, and so on. And on the same place, we have also the body structure. The body structure, in the body structure, we focus on the anatomical components, such as our nervous system, or voice and speech, the skin or movement structures. And each of these items are also divided in subdivisions. For example, in chapter 2 about the eye and ear and related structures, they will speak about the macula, about the different anatomical parts of the eye. In the middle of the model, we have activities and participation. And it's important to make a difference between activity and participation, because activities means the execution of a task or action by an individual. Mostly these are short-term goals. And when we speak about participation, we speak about the involvement in life situation. And this is mostly a long-term goal. So when we want to reach our participation or long-term goal, we need short-term goals, activities to go to there. And this component is also divided in 9 chapters with different subchapters. The first chapter about learning and applying knowledge is about everything about thinking, problem solving, decision making, but also about watching, listening, and writing, everything we can learn. And the second chapter about general tasks and demands, we look to single or multiple tasks, but also routines we have and how can we handle with stress. In the third chapter about communication, we do not only look to communicating by language, but also communicating by using symbols or signs. And it's also the use of communication device and techniques. For example, the use of a braille writer can we place under communication. In the fourth chapter about mobility, we speak about moving of the body position or transferring, but also going from one place to another place by walking, running, climbing, but also using stairs or how can we avoid obstacles, and as the person can the person use the right cane to move himself? Do you have the knowledge about it? In the next chapter about self-care, we focus on activities like washing yourself, toileting, dressing. But dressing, it's not only putting on or off your clothes, but also to choosing your clothes. Can we recognize our clothes? Do we combine? How do we combine our clothes and things like that? Another important one under self-care is looking for your own health, like diet, fitness. Can you take the medication, for example? In the next chapter about domestic life, we focus strongly on everyday actions we do in our daily life. For example, cleaning, cooking, acquiring food, and things like that. In the seventh chapter, we focus on interpersonal interactions and relationships. These are interactions with people in a contextually and social approach manner. This is not only with friends or family, but also with, excuse me, with strangers or lovers, for example. In the eighth chapter about major life areas, we focus on things like education. It's not only formal, but also informal education. Work, not only paid work, but also voluntary work, and economic life. Are we able to handle our own money? Can we go to the bank? Can we pay? And things like that. And in the last chapter about community, social, and civic life, we look to the actions and tasks that are required to engage in social life. For example, can we do activities in our leisure time? Can we do sports? Do we have hobbies? But also spirituality. Do we go to church, for example, and human rights? On our left side down under, we have the component environmental factors, and this is divided in 5 chapters. With the first chapter is everything about products and technology. This could be systems, equipment, or technology. An example that is often used in our target group is the iPhone and apps, for example. In the second chapter about natural environment and human-made change to environment, we have sub-chapters like, for example, something that is on discussion now is the customizing of lighting conditions. We have also the chapter support and relationships. This is not only about people, friends, family, or healthcare providers, but also on animals. We have attitudes, and we have the chapter services, systems, and policies. and this includes also rules, regulations, and conventions. And the last component on our right side, we have the component personal factors. And these are all factors that describe a personal background, a person's background. And this is important to have a broader picture of the client. And this is something we can use when we do an intake or an anamnese with the client. Examples of personal factors are gender, social status, or cultural background. And this is not for the moment not defined in the ICF. It will come, but for the moment it's not defined. Here we see another representation of the ICF framework. This is the same like my first slide when we start with the introduction to the ICF, but represent on in another way. Upstairs we have the ICF that is divided in two parts. On the left side we have our functions and disability, divided in body functions and structures, and activities and participation. And at our right side we have our contextual factors, which is divided into environmental factors and personal factors. And each component has his own chapters and levels. So, and together, the combination with each chapter, component and level, we have 1,400 categories of items who are included in the total ICF. For who didn't know the chapters, the components, and the levels, there is a good website under the slide you can go to have a view to each component and their sub chapters. So it's very broad and yeah, nice to go through. In this slide, this slide is about the dynamic interaction in the ICF. Each component of the model will influence another component, and there is a dynamic interaction. When one component changes, this will have a potential to modify another component in the model. For example, when there is an intervention on environmental factors on the external environment, this will have an effect on the body functions, and this will have an effect on activities. This slide is an example of rheumatoid arthritis, but when we give an example about vision loss, for example, when we adjust the lighting, the lux, this is an external factor. It's and this will have an influence to our body function and structures. Our quality of our visions will increase. And the increasing of the quality of the vision will perform an activity that was very difficult, and we can perform it now easier. For example, reading. So when we adjust the lighting, it will have an effect on our quality of vision, but also on an activity, for example, reading. Okay, to go further to the core set vision loss, it can be good to know what is the ICF core set. First of all, an ICF core set is a purpose-tailored shortlist of ICF categories that describe a specific health condition. Because the extensiveness of the total ICF, remember the 1,400 categories, it can be very handy to have a short list of selected categories for a specific health condition. And we have two kinds of core sets. We have a big one, a comprehensive one, and this is mostly at average 79 categories, which is only 7% of the total ICF. Or we have a short a more compressed version, what is at average 26 items. So this is much smaller than the total ECF. And today there are a lot of course sets available. There are 40 course sets. Examples of developed course sets are the course set for hearing loss, for cancer, for stroke, for cerebral palsy, for multiple sclerosis, for spinal cord injury, and so on. But there are also more course sets in development. For example, the course set deaf blindness, but also the course set for vision loss. Okay, and where can we, what's the use of a course set? Why do we make it? First of all, we create an international standard. We have a common language to speak with each other. When we communicate between different institutions, policies, researchers, or patients, we just use the same words. But it can us give an overview of environmental factors that have a positive or negative impact on the functioning of a person. It's also a tool that we can use in therapy plans or implementation or evaluation for medical interventions in a more patient-oriented way. And it gives also the government an option to regulate the financing of healthcare. So this will be more important in future. So it can point the most or the most positive impact of actions we do. Okay, how do we develop an ECF course set? To create a course set, we can use the steps formulated by CSIA. This is a predetermined methodology that make it possible to use an evidence-based process. And it exists out of 3 phases. The first one is the preparatory phase. This is important because we try to map the perspective of clients, patients, healthcare providers, and experts and researchers. The researchers, we look to the systematic review and try to identify the outcome measures used in studies and demonstrate the most often studied area in a certain population. For the perspective of experts and clients, we map their perspective by using interviews, focus groups, or surveys. When we go to the next phase, the International Consensus Conference, this is a formal decision-making process with consensus rounds, and in order to reach an internationally accepted version of a course set. And in the last phase, we try to implement the first version of our ECF course set. We will test it and validate it if it is usable in practice. Okay, we are already at the last chapter of the webinar, the creation of the ECF course set for vision loss. If you have interest, the full methodology can be read in our discussion and invitation paper. So the link is on the slide. So after this webinar, you will receive the slides and you can go through it. For our course set for vision loss, we started it with a systematic review. We tried to have the perspective of the researchers in 2 ways. First of all, we identify the outcome measures used in studies on adults and elderly with vision loss. In total, we analyzed 100 assessments or measurements, and some of them were very specific for our own target group. For example, the visual functioning questionnaire from the National Eye Institute, or the Dutch activity inventory, or the patient health questionnaire. Some other are more general, for example, the short form 36 or the Who Does. And we try to link every item in the measurement to the ICF. The same was happened for our second part of our study. We tried to look in all literature what are the most often studied areas for our target group. We did a database search between 2001 and 2021, and we have 17,000 articles to analyze. We reduced that to 396, and we tried to find important variables in all articles and link them also to the ICF. This is now done, so our article is ready to submit. So normally in 2 months it will be published. So we have a first idea of items from our total ICF that are important for persons with vision loss, but from a researcher's perspective. In our second part, we try to map the point of view of patients with the aim to identify hindering and stimulating factors. And we did it by using focus groups in Flanders, in Belgium. We have 5 focus groups within a total of 25 persons to have a first view on hindering and stimulating factors for them. And we transcript the focus groups. We try to find in vivo codes. The in vivo codes, we bundled the in vivo codes in categories, and the categories did we link to the total ICF to have a first impression of it. And second, because it's very important that the course set is culture sensitive, so it must be usable in the whole world, not only in Europe or in Flanders, but also in China or Africa. So we need to do a worldwide online survey, and we want for that part 1,000 patients to fill in, and the survey is available in Dutch, French, Spanish, and English. And this part was started in 2022 in October and stops in August 23. So we have a lot of time to find all our participants. So when you have patients by your own organization who want to join this, you can scan the QR code and you go to the online survey. And the same did we do for healthcare experts. We want to gain insight into the issues that are important from an expert's point of view, or that can be an obstacle. Healthcare experts are defined as everyone who works with visually impaired persons. So it could be doctors, nurses, occupational therapists, physiotherapists, low vision therapists, teachers, everyone. This is also a worldwide survey online, and we want to try to reach 600 persons. So this 100 persons in each WHO region. This was also started in 2022 and will end in August 23. And when we have the different perspectives, from patients, healthcare providers, and researchers, we can go to a first draft of our course set. So we have the info of each study we did. Each study shows us some important aspects we can use, and in the point of view of the patient research of healthcare expert can increase the quality of life. And to have our first draft of our course set, there is an international panel that judged about the inclusion and exclusion criteria of our course set. And this is planned normally at the end of this year. So at the end of this year, we will hopefully have a first draft of our course set. And then there is a last phase for implementation. In this phase, we want to try to test and to validate our first course set. And we will do it in two ways. First of all, we will do a randomized control trial. And during this RCT study, we want to find out whether the items included in our first version of our course set effectively create quality of life by questioning items in the beginning of the revalidation process. So we want to, we will do a measurement at the start of the revalidation process, do the same measuring at the end of the revalidation process, and we will look what items evolved and what are the important things the patients gives by matching the goals and the evaluation criteria. And in the second part, we will test the usability of the course set within different target groups. For example, for doctors, are these items included in the course set usable for doctors or for occupational therapists or for teachers? Can they focus on that items? Okay. With this slide, we reach the end of our webinar. So if there are questions, we can continue on answering them. I put also the both of the QR codes on this slide. So if you have patients who can fill in the online survey, you can just scan the QR code, or it would also be nice if everyone take time to complete the healthcare expert survey. So we need 600 healthcare experts, so it's a lot of people. So if everyone here today fill it in, then we have just 560 to go. So it will be nice. If there are questions after today, you can always mail me. My mail address is also on this slide. It can be about the course set or the ICF, or maybe you want to participate in the consensus meeting or things like that. So just send me a mail. So are there questions? No questions? Yeah, Dorette.
Daughter, yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't make my video work, I think.
I hear you.
I was thinking why you use the word patient about person with vision impairments. I mean, isn't that what the ICF handicap was all about, rebelling against this health term? And we would only use it in hospitals and doctors' eye clinics like that.
No.
Have you thought about that?
No, there is no specific reason for we use patients, but it's a long discussion about patients, clients, but yeah, every setting has his own term about it. So patient is more often used in hospitals, clients more used in other settings. It's there is no specific reason why we use patient. It's just a word we choose, and that.
But it's not neutral. It's definitely not neutral, and I think it's kind of making people who are not sick.
Yep,
and
indeed.
Couldn't you use the term vision impaired person?
Yeah, but then we will strongly focus on the part that not functioning. You say visual impaired, so you put them also in a certain way that is not always okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's also intern in our research. It's we have a long discussion about the term we need to use. Are there other questions? I put off my. No questions anymore?
So apparently it was really clear.
Yeah, probably.
Do not hesitate.
I have the
This is
feeling
the time.
it was very quick, so.
Yeah, this is the time for questions. So if you have, do not hesitate.
Well, just to say something, it was really a nice presentation, Lorenzo. Good talk, and I hope everybody wants to participate and bring on clients or patients or persons with visual impairments, and also a lot of professionals we need in this study. So thanks a lot for your interest as well on behalf of Lorenzo.
Yep, indeed. Just a short introduction. Ruth, I mentioned you in the beginning of the presentation. So Ruth is from the University of Amsterdam. Yeah. Nobody have any question? It was clear for everyone?
Okay, as you know, the webinar is recorded, so it will be possible, of course, to have a replay of this webinar for your colleagues or those who couldn't participate today.
And I will also send the PowerPoint, so I suppose you will receive them in your mailbox.
So Lorenzo, if you can send your PowerPoint to me, I will upload it on the Google Drive link.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Okay. So there is a comment from Jolene Stevens. It was very interesting. Thank you. I will fill in the survey. Thank you to you.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi, I would ask something. I'm Chiara. I'm from Italy and I work with pediatrics. And I have some question about this topic, pediatrics and the application of the.
I think the connection is not good.
But I think that of all the things that you said at the beginning of the presentation could be very interesting also in the pediatric population, and maybe also to parents that can give us a lot of information about quality of life and how vision impairment could impact on the life of a child with vision impairment.
I only hear the last part of your conversation because the internet is not stable.
Oh,
But they are just the course set Vision Loss is focusing on adults and elderly persons, so it's not in the target group of children. But I know there are plans to make a version for children and youngsters. So I think it's just waiting till it will be till it be ready to implement it in that part of rehabilitation process.
thank you. Thank you very much. I think that maybe working with adults and elders could make the base for the next level and the implementation for pediatrics. So
We hope
I
so.
will, I will join the link with colleagues that work with adults and elderly.
Yeah. So if I can add to that, in the past years, we have also developed some questionnaires to be used for children and parents, children with vision loss. But there indeed are plans to develop an ICF course set as well for children. But in the meantime, if you're interested, you can contact me if you need something like questionnaires or to be used in rehabilitation settings, for example. And it's about assessing participation needs for children. So if you're interested, just contact me or Lorenzo and we can send it all to you.
Thank you very much.
There is a question from Magda. Thanks, Lorenzo, for sharing your work. Count on me to share the links. And do you have any promotional material?
Yes, we have. I will also send it together with the PowerPoint. So you will receive one mail with everything in it. So you can have the PowerPoint and some promotional materials you can spread.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, any more question or comment? Okay. So maybe we can finish now if there is no more questions. And of course, Lorenzo, you will send to me all the materials, PowerPoint and so on, for to share to all ENVITER members.
Yep, indeed.
Okay.
And if there are questions later on, just
Yes.
send me a mail.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay.
And thank you to all the participants and see you for the next webinar of ENVITER.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.